I think we can go ahead with our. Um, we'll like to invite our speaker, Chandrasekharji. Can I request you to introduce him?
Good morning, everyone, and wish you all a very happy New Year, because this is the first time we are meeting in the New Year. It is great. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend, Mr. S Venkatesh. I had known Mr. Venkatesh, today's speaker, for a decade and a half. We were in touch on and off, but I knew him only as an investment banker. Recently, I came to know that I came to know that he now wears multiple hats. Mr. Venkatesh is an author, speaker, business leader, investor. His books, Agni, Bond, and Kalkut, have both been Amazon #1 bestsellers. Kalkut, described by the Times of India as a heady blend of conspiracy, history, and suspense, has been optioned for screen adaptation. I have read both these books, and it was after a long time that I read two books back to back, because these books were unputdownable. They were so good. Venkatesh has been keenly interested in Eastern philosophy and mysticism right from his college days at IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta. He is passionate about self-discovery and power of stories to inspire, transform. Venkatesh is also an investor who has been on boards of multiple companies and held leadership positions across Asia with JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, Macquarie. As a private equity investor, business leader, and board member, Venkatesh has helped businesses grow, innovate, scale up, and create value. He helped invest funds in the Indian infrastructure sector as a part of the leadership team at the private equity arms of AMP and Macquarie. He has held board and investment committee positions in firms across infrastructure and financial services sector. Venkatesh is passionate about helping businesses and leaders transform and grow to achieve their full potential. He has delivered speeches and conducted workshops across numerous corporate and community fora on creativity, innovation, storytelling, leadership, strategic thinking, and entrepreneurship. He draws on his extensive business experience, storytelling skills, and his experience as an author and mindful practitioner to creatively engage audiences. To help individuals undertake potential transformation, Venkatesh engages with audiences about unlocking creativity and finding passion and purpose. He is passionate about mindfulness, creativity, and personal growth. Here he is to Here he is here to tell us about how to unlock our creativity. Here I present Mr. Venkatesh to you. Mr. Venkatesh, you are welcome, and please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chandrasekharaji. I've known him for over 15 years. And, I think the one thing that has stood out about you is your genuine, honesty, passion, and integrity. And I value your friendship over the years, sir. So thank you very much for having me here. And thank you to Rotary Club of Navi Mumbai Sunrise and the Inner Wheel Club of Navi Mumbai Sunrise as well. And thank you, President Shidolkar, for having me here on this forum. I've been a past Rotarian myself. I used to be with the Rotary Club of Mumbai Queen City. So I have a lot of respect for the work that Rotary Club does. And so I feel especially privileged to be here on this occasion. So Chandrasekharaji said that I wear many hats. I think a lot of it is because I have very less hair now. But very happy to be here talking about creativity. I think, I will alternate between English and Hindi if that's okay for everybody. जब creativity की बात करते हैं तो a lot of images come to people's minds. So one image that comes to my mind is that of somebody sitting on a river bank, maybe in a beautiful valley or near a mountain, sitting and composing poems or music or writing something. The image that comes to mind is something which is very removed from our daily life. When we think about something like that, it sounds very fascinating. It feels like, kash main ye kar pata. But actually, then we get reminded about our child's 10th board exams or college admissions, or we get reminded of bosses and deadlines and targets, and somewhere that image fades away and it remains just a distant image as something that cannot be integrated into our daily life. But actually, creativity is something that is accessible to everyone. We are all inherently creative people. The fact of birth and death and just growing up, learning various things, taking care of ourselves, our families, that itself is a creative process, because creativity is nothing but creation. And the question is, how do we unlock that creativity which exists, which is there within us? I think for that we have to understand what exactly creativity is. Creativity is not just composing poems or music or writing a book. Creativity can just be doing something unique. It can even be reading a book, because as long as there is something unique to yourself that you're bringing to your appreciation of the book, that is also creativity. So on the one hand, Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, is a creative person, but so is maybe a lady in a Mumbai suburb who is running a Dabba service. That is also creativity. Shakespeare may be creative, but so was Swami Vivekananda and Mother Teresa. So when you do social work, that is creativity as well. When you do entrepreneurship, that is creativity at work. And at a more personal level, you don't have to, necessarily do something that the world sits and takes note of. In today's world, we are so pressured for time, between social media and phone and everything, that even reading a book and thinking our own thoughts about the book, that itself is an act of creativity. So creativity, what I wanted to say was that creativity is much more than just writing a poem and sitting on the banks of a river. It is something that we can bring to our daily lives. It is something that can enrich our daily lives. But it's not that simple also. There are some roadblocks which prevent us from doing this. Maybe I'll share a little bit about my own journey. I grew up in multiple cities. I grew up in a town called Farakka in West Bengal, just by the river Ganges. The Ganga River was 2.5 kilometers wide in Farakka. I spent some time in Tanzania, and I still have vivid memories of the national parks there. And I spent the last years of my schooling in Delhi. And I've been wanting to write ever since I saw my grandfather's library, etc. And I participated in some competitions in school. And then when I went to college, I wrote a few science fiction stories, etc. But it remained at a very localized sort of level. And then after my MBA, I started working. I was working in, as Mr. Chandrasekhara pointed out, in investment banking. So I was with Credit Suisse, then JP Morgan. Sometimes the work days would extend to 16 hours. Sometimes I would barely get any sleep. There were deadlines, there were targets. I used to frequently travel on road shows. And, just to give you an idea, this would be a 2 or 3 week road show where you meet investors and you do about 7 to 8 meetings a day. So your day starts at 7 in the morning, ends at 10 in the night. And every day is a different city. So one day in New York, one day in Boston, one day in, and so by night you're taking flights. And at the end of it, there was just no energy left to write. And so slowly I found this dream of wanting to write slipping away from me. So after about almost 10-15 years, I just realized that here and there I would get flashes of inspiration. So as an example, when I was at Macquarie, we were looking to invest in a road project near Ahmedabad. And we were just inspecting that road. And I saw a small board on the side which said Lothal. Immediately, I got reminded of my, I think, grade 7 or 8 history textbook, where we had read that Lothal is an Indus Valley civilization site. So I asked the driver to take a detour and take me to Lothal. It was a deserted place. There was a small museum with one caretaker who was probably in a hurry to go for his lunch when I landed. And there were just ruins. But I sat there and I realized that these ruins 3,000 years ago would have been the site of a bustling port. It was one of the first ports in the world. And today it's a ruin. And suddenly I just felt inspired. A lot of ideas came to my mind. Now, ideas like these come to all of us. There are certain sites, certain pieces of music that inspire us, and we forget about them. That same thing happened with me. I saw this, I felt inspired. I felt, oh, maybe I should write a book which combines history and the modern day and a modern day tale. And then I forgot about it. such flashes of inspiration would occur every now and then. Another one that I remember, I don't know if any to Vietnam. So I was working in Vietnam for a couple of years with a group called Masan. It's sort of like Tata Group. We had multiple businesses. We had a bank, we had a consumer company, etc. So when I was in Vietnam, there is this place called Cu Chi tunnels. During the Vietnam War, basically the North Vietnamese guerrillas used to hide in these tunnels by day, and then they used to launch attacks by night. Sometimes they spent many months in these tunnels, and some of these tunnels are open to the public. So I went to Cu Chi tunnels, and I made the mistake of deciding to crawl down inside one of the tunnels. It was allowed, but I just wasn't prepared for what was going to hit me. So halfway inside the tunnel, I had been crawling for about maybe 10 minutes on all fours. So, you're on your knees. You don't have space to even get up. So you're forced to be on your knees. You don't even have space to turn, for instance. And 10 minutes in, suddenly the claustrophobia hit me. And I realized, oh my God, I'm stuck here in the middle of nowhere and I just feel like gasping for breath. And unfortunately, you need a 10-minute crawl back or a 10-minute crawl forward. You have no option but to go ahead. The funny thing is, even in the middle of all the panic, it struck me that this would be a great setting for a suspense or a horror story. And anyway, I got out of the tunnel in one piece. Many years later, the feelings that I experienced when I was in that tunnel would find its way into my first book. So to cut a long story short, there were these bursts of inspiration, but I didn't know what to do with them. And the same thing happens to many of us. We have an inspiration to start a business or write a book, or maybe just write a poem for ourselves, which maybe only our family will read. But somewhere we lack the tools to act on these bursts of inspiration. And I struggled with this for a while. I would write one day under great inspiration, and then for the next 4 months, I would not be able to write anything. 4 months later, I would write another paragraph or another page, and I realized that वो पहला जो page था और ये जो page है, इसमें कोई relation ही नहीं है. It almost seems like two different people have written it. And slowly, I think the big breakthrough for me was realizing that you have to write regularly. You can't just wait for inspiration to strike. You have to sit in front of your desk, even if you're staring at a blank screen, and make an attempt to write. That was my biggest breakthrough, actually. I started sitting down, even if it was for 10 minutes a day. I made it a point to sit in front of a screen. Most of the days, I used to sit in front of a blank screen. Once I started doing this, it's interesting. They say that the entire universe conspires to make way for the man who knows where he is going. So similarly, after some time, I realized that these bursts of inspiration started coming more frequently. They say, right, opportunity meeting preparedness. That is what is luck. What we call luck is actually, because an opportunity is wasted on somebody who is not prepared. So when I was doing this every day, even for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just snatching time, sometimes in the middle of meetings, I realized that slowly these bursts of inspiration started getting more frequent. And over time, they started falling into a pattern. The second big breakthrough for me was I just would feel that most of the time I'm so tired from work, deadlines, travel, etc. Where is the energy to write? I realized that actually there are a lot of spaces within a day when we have free time, a lot of spaces. So this thing that, I don't have enough time is actually a myth. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, on the Samsung or, iPhone or whatever, there is a digital well-being score. You can click on that and see how many hours you've spent on your phone. I was actually shocked. We spend hours on the phone. It's not very difficult. Instead of whenever you feel tired or stressed or excited or happy. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Whenever we feel tired or stressed, we reach for the phone. Instead, you can reach for a notebook or your notepad on the phone itself and write something if writing is what you're keen on. If music is what you're keen on, instead of reaching for the phone, why don't you listen to your favorite piece of music? So I just realized there are lots of snatches of time during the day that one can actually, make time. For me, that period was when I was taking flights. So there was a period when I was in Vietnam and traveling to India every week because my family was in India. And I ended up taking, I think, close to 300 flights in 3 years. And I realized that flights are a great place because there is no phone, there is no email, and you actually have all the time in the world to go into your mind. And I wanted to write. I had all the time to go and write. That is when my book actually started becoming a reality. So the first book, Kalkut, was published in 2018. The second book was easier because I had gone through the whole process the first time. So the second book was much more civilized. It didn't meander all over the place. So that was a little bit about my journey. But, let me talk about the journey of some of my friends. So there is a friend of mine. He is in a job in the US, quite busy. He writes very well, but he has this feeling that it has to be perfect. He's very inspired by certain writers like Joseph Conrad. And whenever he writes even a single page, he holds it to a very high standard. He says it has to be like Joseph Conrad, otherwise he tears it up. In fact, when he saw the first draft of my book, he said, "This is garbage, throw it away, write again." That is not a great attitude to have. Many of us are burdened by this desire for perfection. It's good to have a desire for perfection. It is not great, however, to start with it. When you start, you have to start humble. The problem which happens is that if you try to, if you feel that everything that comes out of your mouth or your, music composition has to be perfect the first time around, you will feel so daunted by the task that you will not be able to make a start. As Swami Vivekananda said, a plant, when it's growing at first, needs to be hedged and protected. After it's strong enough to become a tree, then it can stand on its own. Your creativity is like that. Protect it from the harsh glare of judgment. So whether it may be anything that you want to do, just a simple thing. Actually, I know somebody, a housewife who has started a dabba service. The first time, she was talking to my wife and she said that, this is very daunting. But actually, it's not so daunting if you break it down into small parts and begin humbly. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I learned. Another is, frequently whenever I do a talk or a workshop, I almost every workshop, there are a few people who come and say, we are in jobs, but we would like to start something on our own. Some of them have very good ideas also. They've been in the industry for many years. And yet, if and when I meet them next, they still haven't done it. And the reasons are many. Some of them say, we haven't made enough money. Maybe we should make enough money. And after that, we can have the financial security. Some of them say, I'm very young. Some of them say, I'm very old. The excuses are there all the time. And some of them say that we are just so tired at the end of a busy day. We don't have mind space. There are family responsibilities, etc., etc. So there are a lot of roadblocks to creativity. Another is a friend of mine. He's been very passionate about wanting to help kids who don't have access to education. He has grand plans to start an NGO, to maybe, pick kids who are bright and, to sponsor their education all the way from primary school up to college. And yet he hasn't done anything about it, even though he's been talking to me about it for 10, 15 years. And the reason is he say, I'm in the productive years of my life. I should focus on building a nest egg. Maybe this I will do when I reach 60 years old. It's a pity because, the time to do anything is now, not necessarily later. So what are these roadblocks and how do we go about trying to overcome them? Actually, it's much simpler, I realized. Initially, I didn't know this when I started writing the book. Otherwise, it would have helped me a lot. I think the first thing is just make a beginning. So if you feel that you want to write poems only for your family, please make a beginning. If you feel that you have this grand plan of setting up an NGO, please make a beginning. Don't set up an NGO from day one. Just if you're passionate about helping kids do schooling, start it in your small way. NGO banana to baad mein hai, all the administrative and legal stuff and setting up an office you can do later in your life. But why not make a beginning by just helping one kid, maybe your domestic helps kid, for instance? Why do you have to have this big grand plan of a palace? It's good to have some vision like that, but it's not very good when that interferes with your ability to make a start. There is a saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Sometimes you have to start with the good, and over time, it's a series of such goods that will make a perfect at the end. So the first thing is make a beginning. There is another angle to this. Most of the time, these excuses that we have, that I want to write like Joseph Conrad, I want to wait for the day when I will have enough financial security. These are actually fear of failure masquerading as a need for perfection. So actually, we are scared that we will fail. We are scared that, oh my God, I will not write like Joseph Conrad. So let me, sabotage the effort from ground level itself. Oh my God, I have this grand plan to build an NGO. Will I be able to do it? Will I really be able to help people? So let me postpone it. It's actually this fear of failure. Once you realize that it's actually the fear of failure, then you realize, you know what, I'll start small. My first draft of my book was horrendous. I didn't like it at all. But I realized that it was a first draft. This is not what I'm publishing. This is something that I'm writing for myself to begin with. So make a beginning. The second part is to be regular. As I said, opportunity comes to those who are prepared. In case of writers, you have writer's block. It's fine. 4 days. There have been times when for a month I've stared at a blank screen. But after that, the ideas just suddenly come in one day. So these energies of the universe, they follow their own peculiar logic. What we can do is to do a little bit every day. So if you feel like, actually I was telling somebody else, somebody was telling me, I feel like I need to help people, but I don't know where to make a beginning. And it struck me, we were both discussing that, why not just help one person every day? It may be even something simple like the person needs, the number of a doctor or something like that, and you can give the number. It's fine. Just make a beginning. The other is, these things appear much more complicated when we have this grand vision. Break it down into small parts. So for me, Victor Hugo, the author of, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he had the book got inspired when he was walking across the cathedral, and suddenly he had the vision of this person with a hunchback who was there, and there was a tale of punishment and revenge and so on. And that was about it. It was just one or two sentences that came to his mind, and from that a whole book was born. So it's like they say, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Sometimes it's easier when we break it down into simple steps. There's so many of people I know. My wife is a musician. She runs an academy actually to train people. And many of these people, they have this desire to sing, but they feel that, yaar, main gaunga public mein, even party mein bhi gaunga, log hasenge. Make a beginning. आपको एक song पसंद है, एक song तो पता होगा, वो एक song से चालू करो. Start small, sing only to your wife and kids, maybe not kids, mostly kids nowadays have very little patience, but maybe to your wife, or to your husband, but make a beginning and break it down into small parts. Learn one song first, learn one para of that song first, learn one line of that song first. That's actually the route to starting to unlock your creativity. And the same holds true for anything. One thing I admired about Devanand, I don't know how many of you are aware. So he had those hits in the beginning of his career, but in the later years of his life, he was actually making a bunch of movies that nobody heard about and nobody saw. There were probably a few people in tier 2 towns who were seeing it, but he still kept making them. I heard an interview of his and he was full of life. He said, I'm enjoying this, I'm doing it. None of us know what movies Devanand made in his 70s, but for him, it was like, he was enjoying himself. So a lot of creativity is like that. You happen to be successful, the world happens to recognize you, that's a secondary thing. But start off by having fun and enjoying it yourself. Don't put the harsh glare of judgment, oh, what will people think? Will it meet the standards of XYZ? It doesn't matter. If you love writing poetry, आपको अगर रफी साहब का गाना सुन के लगता है कि आप कविता लिख सकते हो तो लिखिए, और दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है किसी को. अगर दिखाना है तो मे बी एक दो दोस्तों को दिखा दो, maybe when they're all a few pegs down, so they will not be very judgmental. But make a beginning and don't have, the other thing is to be patient. So a lot of, especially younger people these days, start off with the feeling that they need instant rewards. Even if it's not in terms of success, they feel that, even that happens to me also now. I feel that once I started writing a book, I'm very impatient for it to finish. But most things in life require time. I've been in the stock markets for many years as an investment banker, and I realized that one of the, I spent almost 15, 20 years in various investment banking jobs, but somehow in my personal investing in the stock market, I didn't make that much money. I mean, I made some money, but not a lot. I now know why that was the case. In those years that I was in various investment banking jobs, all these jobs teach you to think short term. अगले क्वार्टर का टारगेट बीट हुआ कि नहीं, अगले क्वार्टर में कितने क्लाइंट्स आए. So similarly with stocks, you expect the stock to give you a return in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. In the last 6 years that I've been on my own, I've got my own management consulting firm now. I didn't have that pressure. In my management consulting firm, there may be 3 or 4 months where I don't take any assignments. And that same attitude of giving it time percolated into my stock investments as well. So actually the last 5-6 years, my stocks have done very well. So this being able to give it time and be patient is a superpower. Any area of life, as diverse as stock markets to creativity to business, it yields returns. So don't have huge expectations that, I started this exercise of spending 10 minutes, 15 minutes every day, just listening to music or writing a poem or thinking about my entrepreneurial venture, and within 1 month I will have something. Give it time. There's no huge hurry. The other thing which I found very insightful was, our conscious mind is just probably 1% of who we are. 99% of our strength and our potential resides in our subconscious mind. How do you awaken the power of your subconscious mind? Because if that happens, it becomes very powerful. Ramanujan, the mathematician, said that his equations used to come to him as if they would come from a goddess. In a way, that is his subconscious mind. The person who found that the structure of the molecule benzene, he had spent years in a laboratory trying to figure out what is the structure. And then he slept one day and he had a dream of a snake which was catching his own tail. And then he immediately woke up and he realized, oh my God, that is the structure of benzene, because it is not a circular, but like a cyclical structure. Till then, all the molecular structures that had been discovered were horizontal. Benzene is the first one which goes like a diamond. It touches each other like a serpent touching its tail. So it was his subconscious mind which gave him the answer. And how do we awaken the power of the subconscious mind? I've actually found something very practical, and it's interesting that the famous Japanese writer Murakami said the same thing. You need to alternate between two states. One state is, suppose you decide I want to write a book or I want to think about my entrepreneurial venture. Suppose you want to start a venture to, an education venture. You spend some time in intense activity. You're focusing on it, you're thinking actively, you're not getting up from your desk, you're not getting distracted by social media or phone, not taking phone calls. You're thinking very actively, acha kaise kare? You're trying to draw a roadmap, trying to draw a flowchart or something like that. And then alternate it with periods of relaxation. So you just shut the computer, shut the book, forget about this, spend your day, go for a walk, go to the gym, spend time with your friends or your family, or just forget about it, listen to music. In the latter period of time, your subconscious mind is working. And most often you will get your brightest ideas when that is happening. So Murakami apparently does this intense period of writing in the morning, and then he goes for a 10-mile long walk. And a lot of the time he gets his ideas there. The ideas just come, he's not making a conscious effort. So the first part is conscious mind working. Second part is subconscious mind working. Actually, this is very simple, but it proves very effective. So you could try it out. So you could spend, I don't know, start with whatever it is you want to do. You want to start a venture, you want to write something, you want to maybe write about current affairs or something like that. You want to maybe learn music, spend 10 minutes actively doing it, 10 minutes, 1 hour, whatever that period is that you can devote to it, maybe 2 hours. That is conscious. And then forget about it. And the rest of your day, you will find the tunes coming into your mind. You will find that inspiration coming to you. So that's how you leverage the power of your subconscious mind. I'd just like to, I've spoken enough. I'd love to hear if you all have any questions. But before that, I'd just like to leave you with two things. I think one of them is, a saying, a friend of mine pointed it out to me recently by Nelson Mandela. He says that our biggest fear is not that we may be inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we may be very powerful. We fear not the darkness. We fear our own light. We have much more potential than we even think. And there is no age bar, nothing to unlocking that. I mean, the Captain Nair started Leela Hotels after his retirement, actually, I think in his 60s. There is no age bar to unlocking that, but most of the time we are just scared of our own potential. Why are we scared of our own potential? Because letting creativity flow through you means giving up control. Once you give up control, you feel scared because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, will I hurtle down a slope? Will I become mad? Will I, will I do something silly? We don't really know what will happen. What kind of inspiration will come to me? We are scared of that. It's much easier to live in our own cocoon, in our own comfort zone, and and live our own life. Unfortunately, by doing that, we are limiting our potentialities. We are limiting our potentialities. I was doing that for many years, that I was in a typical job. About 6 years ago, I took the decision to actually let go of the comfort and security of a typical job and instead start my own outfit, which would also give me more free time to be able to write, etc. So it took me a few years. It was not very easy because I would look at my other friends and colleagues and think, oh my God, maybe I should just go back to a job. But after a few years, you realize that the universe makes way for these things. And I think if there is one thing that I would like to leave you with today, it is the fact that you need to just make a beginning, get over that fear of failure, get over that need to be perfect. Stop waiting for that one fine day in the future, whatever it may be. It may just be that you want to recover the reading habit that you had from childhood, or you want to, maybe you were used to sing for your college hostel during your days, and you just want to recapture that singing, or maybe it's been 5 years since you heard your favorite, whatever it might be. Just make a beginning, because the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I'll stop here.